All right, hello everyone. This is the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. Today is January 17, 2019. As a reminder, this meeting is recorded and published on YouTube. Today we are going to go over the planning spreadsheet to review the items that we are working on as a SIG for Q1 for the 1.14 Kubernetes release. After that, we're going to go over some of the PRs that currently need attention. And looks like we don't really have any designs that need any discussion. If there's anything you want to talk about, PRs, designs, or anything else, feel free to add to the agenda. The link to the agenda document is in your invite. So let's go ahead and get started. First up is Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group Planning for 114. I'm just going to go down and we'll get status updates for each one of these items. First up is the big item that we're working on this quarter, which is building a migration engine for Inline Volume plugins to CSI. David, Chang, or Deep, are any of you on the line to give an update on this?
Yeah, so this is Deep. I'm online. This is basically going, it's a work in progress. We were stuck a little bit earlier around staging library, so that's all cleared up. The library is now up, and all the publishing bots and everything has been put in place. So yesterday I checked, we are getting the library synced up to the staging repo. So we are completely unblocked on that area, and the work around like provisioning the attached controller and the mount unmount is in progress, taking a dependency on the staging library. The other interesting update there is DIMS reached out around putting in support for the Cinder OpenStack entry driver. So they have moved it to a CSI driver and putting in the migration framework for that, similar to what's been put already for EBS and GC. So that's the other update.
Nice. Okay. So using it in the core code is a work in progress right now.
Right. That's right.
Okay. Next up is CSI Entry, implementing CSI pod inline volume support. Vlad, do you have any updates on this?
Yeah, so for this one, yesterday, Kevin pointed out that there's a cap being asked for this. So the next step is to create a cap and to I guess, I'm not exactly sure of the cap process, but somebody had added a comment on the feature, on the existing feature to create a cap. So that's the next step. I've already been meeting with Kevin Fox and Sergey, trying to plan a path to get this work rebooted.
Okay, sounds good. And we'll keep an eye on that. Please reach out if you need any help with that. We'll consider that started. And then next up is moving CSI block volume support from alpha to beta. Is Ben on the line by any chance?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Ben.
I don't have an update on this yet. I need to figure out if we're doing this in the host path driver or the GCE PD driver or a different driver. If I have to write this code, I guess I'll do it in the host path driver. But I had been hoping that someone was gonna, put raw block support in one of the other drivers, so I wouldn't have to do anything.
Got it.
Okay. Yeah, we got to get it in there for testing it, and the implementation in host path won't be that hard.
Okay.
Just copy it out of the existing host path.
And we can think on that in the Kubernetes CSI meeting.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for the update.
Just
next
quick
up,
question: Don't we have we should have a mock driver for these types of purposes, right?
There are two things. One is the mock driver, which actually is mostly used just for unit testing, as far as I understand. And then there's a host path driver, which is used for kind of end-to-end testing with a dummy driver. So in this case, I think the host path driver would be the one that we want to use to exercise these code paths on the Kubernetes side.
Got it.
But if you could get a real implementation on a real driver, that would be super helpful as well.
Well, there are a few real drivers that have support, but none of them are able to run in the gate tests.
Got it. All right, next up is also for CSI, adding online and offline resizing support to CSI as alpha. Amant, do you have an update on this?
Yeah, so we got initial resizer controller merged, and the work is in progress. There's a double processing of PBCs issue that we are trying to solve that affects the entry controller as well. The stale PVC update PR that I linked to you, Saad. So that is something we need to solve in both the places. So
Okay.
there's a PRs for open for both. So it's in progress.
Cool. Thanks, Amant. Next up is CSI Driver Lifecycle Manager for installing, upgrading CSI drivers. I'm not sure if this was something, Jan, you're going to be working on this quarter or not.
Well, I will set up a meeting to clarify the requirements. This is really necessary, and what it should actually do. I haven't started yet.
Okay. Do you intend to work on this, or do you think it might be
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So next steps are
At least the design.
Chang, are you on the line by any chance? Oops. So Chang from our team is also going to be working on something similar, so it'll be good for both of you to sync up on this. I'll talk to him to reach out to you. All right, cool. Jan, I'm not going to attempt to spell your last name right now.
Okay.
And that's design. Next up is CSI topology to beta.
Yes, so this one's kind of we're a bit stuck on the on some of the open items around the CRD installation and the webhook installation for the CRDs. So we are waiting for guidance on that from the meeting that Xing has planned.
Cool. Thank you for helping drive this, Deep and Ching. I think we are the first SIG to actually use CRDs for entry components, so we're hitting all the roadblocks.
Yep.
We're kind of forging the way. All right, next up is secure volumes. Jing and Chang are working on this. I think actually it's mostly Jing. Jing, are you on the line by any chance? Okay, so we will get an update on this next time. For scalability testing, Patrick, do you have any updates? Looks like Patrick might not be on the line. I know he's in Germany, so it's a weird time for him. And Michelle's out today as well. So next up is CSI Entry, move alpha CRDs to beta. So we got a little bit of an update on that. Xing, do you want to add anything?
I think that's pretty much it. We're waiting to have the meeting so we can have a guidance on what to do with that. Yep. And I think Fabio has updated his PR with one field test for COPS, but that's related to this discussion. We need to figure out how to pass those test errors.
Sorry, this is the PR that's updating the CRDs from alpha to beta?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fabio's online.
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay, you have anything to add?
No, anything actually. It's just waiting for the CRD's installation, and there's just one test that is failing because of this. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you. Next up is redesigning keys for per node volume attachment limits.
So I talked with some SIG scheduling folks yesterday, and we haven't. We're still working on like the idea that we decided that we'll work together to get a design for this thing actually, so that it makes everyone happy. But I think in this quarter, best we can do is target a design for this one.
Okay. So let's make this a question mark for now and then revisit it, or do you want to just change it to design now?
Yeah, we can just change the design now, I think.
Okay. Is there anybody that was depending on this behavior? David, is this something that you were depending on for the migration? This is the attached limit. So as far as I understand, that wasn't a blocker for you.
Yeah, we might want once that's another thing that we'll come back to this when we go to the design issues that we have in the SIG storage doc. So it will become relevant when we remove existing predicates, the cloud provider specific predicates. But until then, I think we are fine.
Okay. Next up is pluggable end-to-end test framework. Patrick is not here to give an update. Brad, are you on the line by any chance? Hey, Brad, are you there? Okay, we'll get an update on this next week as well.
Hey, I'm sorry, Saad, I couldn't find the but
no worries.
Yeah, so we have this. We've actually been holding weekly meetings for it, and Methuselah and Matthew are working full speed on it. We've got Matthew's got a design document out there, bringing some of the pieces together, and yeah, this is going good.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks a lot for the update, Brad. Next up is Kubernetes Conformance, establish process tests and documentation. Sri, are you on the line?
Yeah, hi. Actually, I'm working on it. I did push a simple PR with a single node test for volume attach today, actually. So I'm still very unclear about multi-node tests. I'm basically looking at conformance design document that Michelle has produced. So I need to work out a few details. So there will be multiple PRs coming.
Awesome. Looks like progress. Thank you, Sri. All right, next up is local PVs to GA. Hemant, is this still something you're working on?
Yeah, I'm working on, but I don't have an update today, actually. I think
okay. Cleaning up storage feature gate handling. Looks like this was completed. So we'll skip over that. Next up is non-recursive volume ownership. Matt Smith or Hemant, do either of you have a update here? It looks like there was a design that was reviewed by Jordan with some open questions.
Yeah, so we are going to move that design to a KEP, formal KEP, to like in like a few minutes, I guess. And then the main Jordan's reservation is that design currently only addresses PVC, so it doesn't address inline volumes. But I think that's not really a blocker, but we'll see. So that's where we are at.
Okay.
We're going full steam ahead with this.
Awesome. So that sounds great. Next up is revisiting UIDGID handling with volumes. Brad, any updates on this?
No, I don't have updates. I'm aware of it, though. I just don't have an update.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
There's some flex volume people also are asking for similar thing. They want a UID as part of the setup call, actually, so that they can use that for some reason. So it's kind of, but we don't have anyone dedicated to working on it.
Yeah, I think this is kind of painful the way we handle it, but also the fact that we're leaking OS details into the API is pretty bad too. It's a tough problem to solve. Next up is volume health, coming up with a design for this. Is Nick Wren on the line or anybody working on it? My guess is no, since he's in a different time zone.
So I'm interested in helping out on this one, the volume health.
Okay. Feel free to sync up with Nick
Okay.
and see what the current status is, and yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Next up is CSI Entry post-GA tasks. The post-GA tasks include moving the callers of volume attachment to V1, refactoring any refactoring cleanup, read-only changes that we needed to do. I think we are not actively working on that considering the priority. Is that correct, Vlad? You're not, it's not assigned to you, so I think it's currently unassigned, which is why I assume it's not being worked on right now.
I'm sorry, Saad, which task were you referring to?
Post-GA tasks. In particular, moving the colors of volume attachment to V1, any refactoring and updates to read-only.
Oh yeah, I haven't looked at that actually.
Yeah, that's okay. I think we just left this one unassigned for now.
Okay, sorry.
And as far as I know, I think the read-only work, we didn't need to do anything there. The refactoring we're holding off on, so the only work here might be moving the callers to V1. Okay, next up is CSI out of tree, automating sidecar release and test process. So this actually, as far as I know, has already started. Patrick has been actively working on it. But the details of it I don't have. Luis, are you on the line? Are you able to give an update on that? Okay, next item is CSI Entry refactoring the kubelet driver registration to reconciliation model. This we have not started yet either. Next up is volume snapshots. The changes here were nothing. I think this is a P3 for the quarter. Any updates here, Xing, that you want to share?
Yeah, we are working on execution hook and also PVPVC taint and tolerations. So that's actually related to that redness gate. So the taints thing, now we are looking at the taints.
And this is just design, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think we need to submit the caps for those. So I'm working on the one for execution hook. Jean is working on the spec for the taints.
Yes, so I think working on design the PVPVC taint, it was discussed in volume snapshots meeting, but has not yet discussed in SIG storage. So I'll write up some like initial proposal, and maybe next time we can discuss it.
Okay. Do you want to submit the KEPs for this quarter, or would you be okay holding it off until next quarter? What I don't want to do is have folks distracted trying to review this and take attention away from the other P1, P2 items that we have.
Yeah, so maybe it's okay to hold up, but can I talk to you offline? Like,
Sure,
yeah.
Okay. Next up is the CSI library, moving the Mount library to an external common repo. Travis, any updates here? Vlad, do you know if Travis is still working on this?
I think he is. I don't have an update for this, but it's like a 2 feet away from me right now. We're out of town, but I'll ask him and then I'll update you.
Cool. Thank you. Next up is provisioning capacity reporting for generic topology. This is a design that will be required for local volume dynamic provisioning. We didn't have anybody assigned to it, so I don't anticipate any updates here unless somebody has volunteered to pick this up. Okay. Next up is subpath expansion, fixing that. Kev, are you on the line? Okay, we'll get an update on that next time. The next 3 items, post-GA entry topology, CSI moving NFS driver to a separate repo, and iSCSI driver to a separate repo. All 3 are currently unassigned. Is anyone interested in working on any of these items?
For the fiber channel driver, I made a PR to get it moved out.
Oh, you have created for the fiber channel. Okay.
Yeah, it still needs some cleanup and code review.
Nice.
Wasn't John working on this?
John was working on the common library for iSCSI, I believe. This is moving the driver that we have to a separate repo and having it use the common library.
Okay, so the actual usage of the library, I got you.
Right. So we don't have any owners for that right now. We'll just leave this as looking for owners.
Hey, Saad, if you want an update on that library package that Travis is working on. So he is actively working on it. I think he restarted not too long ago. He said he rebased the PR this week, and now tests are passing. So he's looking to continue working on it this quarter.
Okay, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Vlad. And then finally, the topology work. I don't believe there's any updates here. Moving fiber channel, we got an update from Methusen, so thank you, Methusen. Next up is moving online resizing to beta. This is in the core Kubernetes rather than for CSI. Matt or Hemant, any updates on this?
I don't think we have made any changes, but there was a PR in last quarter itself already that got dropped for in the last minute. So
next up is audit the CSI PVPVC code for related issues related to this one. Okay. I don't believe we have an owner for that. If anyone's willing to do this audit, let us know and we will work with you to explain the details of what needs to be done. And then finally, volume expansion for stateful sets. Siddharth, are you on the line?
I don't think he'll be online, but this I added it because also being tracked by like SIG apps, I think. So there's a PR, there's a design open, there's a PR open as well. I encourage people to look at it, and I don't know if it should be in our spreadsheet at all or not, but it was being done, so I just added it to make sure that we are aware of it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So yeah, if you're interested at all in resizing and volume expansion, please take a look at this, as this is an extension of that work. All right, thank you very much for the status updates. Next up, we have a set of PRs that folks are requesting attention on. Let me just go ahead and accept all these changes. So first up, we have fix hang when unmounting disconnected NFS volume, requested by Jing.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about this?
So I think this is a known issue for a while. So basically, when you have NFS, when the NFS server is disconnected, and anything like for the NFS volume, if you try to do anything, it will basically hang there. And normal unmount will not help because the thread will just hang there. And so I think there are a few options we have. And in this PR, basically, he's trying to just add a force option to unmount. But we are thinking, because you add a force here, that means every amount, no matter it is related to NFS volume or not, will use this option. We are not sure whether it is safe or not. We prefer not to just directly use force to all the amount operation.
Yeah, that's a good.
And so we are thinking either one, we kind of recognize, okay, if it is NFS type of volume, we can put amount with force option. Or another option is, since this relates to clean up the volume, right? And there is a cleanup often pod the function. So whenever the pod is identified as orphaned, so we can maybe use force option there.
But we don't unmount volumes in the cleanup orphan pod routine.
I'm sorry, what
we do not unmount volumes in cleanup orphan pod function, I think. We only...
Yes, there's no amount there. We are thinking maybe we could potentially add unmount function, is there any concerns? Why not just go ahead to unmount?
So I think the reason we never did that is because we want to leave it in the hands of the volume plugin to determine what the right steps for cleanup are. Unmount tends to be one step, but it's possible that there's other steps that the volume
right. But it just sometimes we still have some edge cases that normal unmount procedure does not work, and cleanup open pods could be used as the last kind of thing to basically clean up the whatever we have.
So in this case, like earlier we used to have that the NFS server is down, it used to wedge entire kubelet. Now, like as I understand it, this is just affecting that particular volume, correct?
Right.
So yeah, before we have a big issue of it will wedge the whole kubelet, and we fix it. Right now, seems the code path should only affect that volume, should not make the kubelet hang. But it's still, we are not completely solve this issue because the NFS mount is still hanging there. Just in case somewhere we didn't fix correctly, maybe it will.
Can we verify that this force unmount on NFS mounts works as expected when the server is no longer available?
For my understanding, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure force option will cause any unexpected.
I remember when this came up last time, it was, why was this not discussed as an option?
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't remember. I tried searching for it, the place where we discussed force actually. I didn't find anything on GitHub.
So from what I searched is basically last time, because it make the whole kubelet thread hanging. So we kind of change some part of code to avoid.
Right. Why was it not considered that we should do a force unmount on NFS? Because I remember we were discussing options for how to get the NFS mount to be unblocked, essentially the unmount.
Yeah, so in that case, it was cleaner to actually, like, we should not be performing any unmount on the main kubeless go routine anyway. So I think it was a right call to not, rather than doing that on the main go routine, like shuffle it around so that it can be avoided. So that was not too
right.
bad.
That's fine. But I think we were also considering like options to make the unmount succeed. I think it was both options were under consideration. But for some reason, this was never brought up, and I'd like to make sure we understand why.
Yeah.
So overall, I think this is a good approach for unmounting NFS if it works as we think it does. We need to be careful before we start applying this in the orphan pod loop or more generically to make sure we don't have unintended consequences. So maybe we could do multiple PRs, one that's focused on just applying this to blocked NFS mounts. And then if that works as expected, we can see where else we can apply it. Does that sound okay, Jing?
Yeah, sure. It just I'm thinking if someone can help, keep track of this, that would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody's familiar with NFS or is interested in this area, could you please help review this PR?
So the decision is basically we only apply force option to NFS mounts.
Right. So start small, try to make as few changes as possible and verify that it works as you think that it does, and give that some time to bake. And if it does, we can see where else we can apply this. I don't want to make a big system change that changes unmount for all options and then have that blow up in our face.
Okay. I'll let the author know and ask him to revise his PR. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Jing. Next up is pod is stuck in terminating state forever.
So, because considering all the things we plan to discuss, I'm thinking maybe we can skip this.
Okay.
Just if we have time, then we can.
Sure. Next up is a PR from Hemant on adding support for Cinder attached limits. Hemant, do you want to talk about that?
So this was already merged actually, but I just wanted everyone to be aware of it. Like, and we have a follow-up discussion. So the thing is like we have 3 hard-coded predicates for EDO, like used to be hard-coded and mostly hard-coded for EBS, GC, and Cinder. Sorry, EBS, GC, and Azure. So this PR adds support for Cinder. And the current default is 256 to be on conservative side. So it's something to be aware of. So,
and
like,
for Cinder, is that a normal limit? Where does the 256 number come from? Is it based on something?
The idea is like, because Cinder could be backed up by RBD or iSCSI, so the number is arbitrarily high. Actually, it doesn't. Yeah, I discussed with Srinivas, like Dims, who owns a bunch of OpenStack code, and he suggested he agreed to it, but it's not based on anything as such.
Okay. And then is the intention that it's somehow configured, or?
Yeah, the intention is that it will be configured via the kubepdmax vals, the environment variable.
Okay. And that is per node?
That's for entire cluster.
For the entire cluster. So you would put that on the kube controller manager?
Yeah.
Okay. And then any concerns with adding in a new, I assume this is a new predicate,
predicate.
Pod, it's a new predicate, but it also has API changes, right? A new name in the pod resource list?
Not in pod resource list, but nodes allocatable, yes. Like
nodes allocatable,
it could be reported via nodes allocatable. So that's where the design issue comes from. Like Bobby and his scheduling, they want, it's in our interest too, to deprecate all the existing cloud provider specific predicates. So this would mean that we are adding this predicate and we are deprecating also in .1.14 actually. So
should we have added this if we're going to deprecate it?
It's that's some folks were okay with adding it, some folks weren't.
Okay.
So that's where we stand right now. And the thing is that without this limit, like it's been open issue since forever actually. Like it's an ongoing issue since forever. There are many issues open too that people are asking for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's, but
it's a temporary workaround, and it'll be available, but it'll be like, hey, use it at your own risk kind of thing, and then hopefully we'll have a better solution soon.
Yeah, so as soon as, there's a CSI predicate also, right? So as soon as the OpenStack cloud provider is removed from Entry, it's already deprecated, the OpenStack cloud provider. So as soon as it is removed, this predicate will be deprecated. So
this actually, I think it might be worth talking through with David. So anything that's part of the Kubernetes API has a very long deprecation policy, and for the migration, we can remove the entry code, but we can't remove the API. So if somebody adds this to the API, we need to be able to do the translation to CSI.
But there's no API in this. This is a predicate. And predicates, I spoke to they can be as long as we put a notice and provide this thing. So it is.
So if somebody specifies this key somewhere in their pod when they're using, a Cinder volume, and then that Cinder volume is being fulfilled by CSI, we still need to be able to handle this key, right?
It cannot be specified in the pod. It's automatically specified comes in the nodes allocatable. So
I'm sorry, yes, I meant, so if somebody specifies this on the node side, how do we handle it if we've done the migration to CSI?
Yeah, so that will be handled as part of how we this is a problem that will affect all the other 3 plugins as well. So the plan is like as the entry to CSI migration happens, these keys will be respected, and that's the plan, at least for now. And the CSI migration document has to kind of take into account these keys actually as the migration happens. So not only this is tied to when OpenStack Cloud Provider is removed from entry, but it's also tied to the CSI, like the actual removal of the predicates. Deprecation is fine, but actual removal of the predicates is tied to the CSI migration.
Okay.
And obviously the cloud provider themselves cannot be removed until the CSI migration bit is in place as well, right? Like we cannot just delete OpenStack Cloud Provider code until.
Yeah. So what I want to do is make sure that the design that we have coming up with the attach limits takes into account the migration.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So whoever is working on this, let's make sure that you also sync up with David to walk through what that design process is going to look, or the migration process is going to look like, and make sure we handle that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for bringing this up, Month. Anything else?
I'll just, while I'm here, so like I also just want to, if anybody has any objection to deprecating the cloud provider specific predicates in 1.14, like not actually remove, just marking them as deprecated. So we have a couple of release cycles to bake them in and give us an opportunity to later on like migrate them and move them.
So these were all beta features, right?
So the beta feature is only the node limits are beta features. If you delete just the node limit part, the other part has been there since forever, right? The like hard-coded like cluster global limits for these these have been there since forever.
So does the Kubernetes deprecation policy of basically you can never deprecate apply here?
This is not API. These are predicates, so they can be deprecated.
I see.
That policy does not apply.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to discuss here?
No, that's all.
Cool. Let's move on to the next one, which is from Jan. Include namespace, name, and random distribution of PVs among availability zones. So I believe the idea here is that today there is a algorithm when you use a stateful set with PVCs, it generates the PVC names in such a way to allow for distribution of the PVCs among multiple zones. If you have multiple zones, that algorithm, I believe, is solely based off of the PVC name today. And as I understand it, I think, Jan, you're proposing incorporating the namespace in there. Can you talk more about that?
We have some crazy customer who runs some kind of jobs. They create namespace with random name. They create PVC with stable name, and they run whatever they run. And they have multi-zone cluster, and all their jobs run in the same availability zone because they use the same PVC name. They just apply some template, some Helm chart. And they, of course, want to have the workloads distributed randomly among the zones. So we should include the namespace in the calculation. I have a PR open. Michelle arguments that we should use late binding of PVCs, but I'm stuck with this customer. I'm stuck with the old Kubernetes that doesn't support late bindings, and I think it's still a bug even if you use late bindings, because people will use immediate binding like forever until.
So what version are you looking to target? And even if we make this change, we can't cherry pick it back to an old version, can we?
Well, I can cherry pick my product. I cherry picked my product, but I want at least the agreement upstream and fix it in 1.13.
I see. Okay. Is this going to have any effect on backwards compatibility at all?
There is one catch. If you have a cluster with stateful set and you update the cluster, and you resize the stateful set, you add a new pod. Previously, it would be scheduled to a zone where there is no pod. Now we change the algorithm in between, so it may be scheduled in a zone where there is a pod.
So if someone is depending on the scheduling behavior to act a certain way, they'll be surprised.
Yes.
So I guess
that's correct.
It basically boils down to if we think that the scheduling behavior is the backwards compatibility policy applies to it or not. Okay. I think I'm fine with it as long as SIG scheduling is okay with it. So maybe let's run it by Bobby or someone and say, are you okay with us changing the behavior here? And if they're okay with it, I see no problem with it.
I'm not sure it's SIG scheduling here because this is dynamic provisioning.
Right. Well, I guess it's scheduling of the volumes, which then the pods will follow.
Mm-hmm.
Indirectly related to scheduling.
Yes.
Does anybody else on the call have any concerns?
I think doing this is fine, but just with delayed binding, this will actually work automatically.
Yes.